So I'm continuing my catch up on the Pabst movies before they expire. I only have two left. That's because I watched two tonight. They're so good. I can't believe. I don't know. I kept meaning to watch them and then I just didn't. And I always do this. I work best under pressure, okay? I have to have, like, the deadline is coming down the gun and then I'm like, I'm doing it, right? That's how I work. So that's how I watch these movies. So, the first one is called The Love of Jeanne Ney, and it's from a novel by Ilya Ehrenberg, hard to say. And it is set in Crimea and Paris. Basically, it's during the Russian Revolution, and a man is blackmailed into having a list full of Bolshevik agents that are then leaked that he has this list because these men are trying to seduce his daughter. It's always something like that. So when he gets killed, she heads off to Paris to live with her uncle, but her uncle is a little lecherous and tries to make it with her as well. And the men follow her to Paris and keep trying to get their way into her life, mess things up, kill people, steal things, including a priceless diamond. At one point, one of them attempts to seduce her uncle's daughter, aka her cousin, played by Brigitte Helm. Brigitte Helm, obviously one of the greats. She's blind. So he is trying to seduce her in order to kill her, kill the uncle, marry a flapper, and run off with this diamond. Meanwhile, we have the other woman just trying to make it, survive in Paris after leaving Crimea. And eventually, she thinks she's running off with the right person, but it turns out he's the wrong person because all kinds of things go wrong. And eventually you realize, well, you will always know that he's like the murderer, and she eventually realizes it too. Her person she actually likes is freed, and the diamond is theirs. That's the entire plot. It doesn't really fit in all that well with a lot of the other Pabst films. It's similar, I guess, in a bit to like Diary of a Lost Girl in that it's very episodic over a course of a bunch of times, but it's very sort of almost pulpish in its story, and it's not as socially aware as a lot of her films, although there are communists and Bolsheviks and revolution and all of that, but it's very soapy mixed into all of this. But the shots in it are astonishing. Some of the greatest use of close-ups I've ever seen in a movie. Everybody gets just killer close-ups. There's close-ups on action sequences where, like, everyone would do a medium shot, and because someone's about to fall or something or come at somebody, and Pabst is like, nah, we're right on their face, and so there's this movement with the close-up that you just don't expect. It was astonishing and awe-inspiring, and honestly, if you want to make films now that will astonish people, learn from what they did in these late era silents, because you'll see things and go, holy shit, that's gorgeous. Why don't we do that anymore? And then just do that, and you'd make amazing movies. So this is Pabst's The Love of Jeanne Ney. It's from 1927. I enjoyed it for all its pulpy beauty. It's one of my faves that I think I've seen of his, just in terms of its direction and like the passion of all of the performances. The next film I watched sort of falls more in line with Westfront 1918. This is Kameradschaft, aka camaraderie, or camaradership, in France known as La Tragédie de la Mine, or the Mine, and it's in both German and French, because it takes place on the border between Germany and France, right at the end of World War I, 1919. There is a mine on the border that was split in 1919, and on one side is France and the French border, and on the other side is German and the German border. And the plot is somewhat inspired by the industrial accident in Courrières, France in 1906. However, he takes that story, or the writer takes that story and transplants it at the end of the war at this border to say something about the ridiculousness of borders and the way in which we are all human when we are all each other's brothers. And so the collapse happens on the French side of the mine, and the Germans decide they're going to help the French because if it happened to them, they would hope the Germans would, or the French would help them. And so they help each other, and the German men and women and the French men and women all realize that war is dumb and that everybody is human and that we should all be friends. And that sounds really glib, but it's very deep in the way it tells that very sort of basic story. And again, it's another very anti-war film coming towards the end of the Weimar Republic as we're heading into World War II. It might be 1931, which for Americans, we're like, we didn't head to war for another 10 plus years. Nah, like, watch Cabaret. Like, Germany was already heading there. Hitler was already doing shit. Like, they already knew where they were headed. And people like Pabst were making these movies to say, like, we don't need to repeat the past. We need to move forward as a united world. And this is a film that really shows that message in a beautifully humanist way. It is, again, shot in sound, and he uses sound effects in the mines, in the dance halls, out on the streets, every which way he can, in such beautifully mixed ways that really makes the film feel alive. It's also got some gorgeous cinematography using, like he always does, such fluid camera setups. Unlike the one I watched first, there wasn't a lot of close-ups, but there was a lot of sort of shots of the camera swooping through crowds and swooping through people and swooping into the mines, and a lot of rocks falling and things like that, and it was all so beautifully shot. This film is available from Criterion on DVD Blu-ray, and then you can stream it obviously on Filmstruck through Friday, and The Love of Jeanne Ney is available on DVD from Kino, and you can stream it on Filmstruck through Friday. I recommend both films. I really can't stress enough how great all of these Pabst films are. Like, I knew that Pandora's Box was great, and I knew that Three Penny Opera was great, and then I was like, Pabst. I don't know what I was doing sleeping on all these films. They're so amazing, and they're so technically well made that it's like, why don't we talk about him every day? He's such a great filmmaker, and such a humanist filmmaker. Just amazing. So, Pabst, you're fantastic. I'm sorry I slept on you for so long. I'm glad I'm catching up on your cinema now. Everybody watch these films.